by hook or by crook, before. Tinkerbell had found herself bobbing down an uncharted channel on a velvet soft lily pad when she came to a stony inlet, the likes of which she'd not seen before. Strange, she thought. Of course she knew there was more to the world beyond what she'd seen with her own eyes, and yet it didn't seem that she'd been paddling, drifting really, and napping once, albeit briefly, long enough to suddenly find herself completely disoriented. But then it had been a disorienting sort of day, rebuked by the elders for her experimentations with dark magic. "Begone," they proclaimed, with pleasure rebuked over something as silly as pots and pans. She'd show them. If she was gone, as they'd suggested, they'd be none the wiser about her use of magic anyway. She didn't fly off. That might have caused too much of a stir. She stomped and shouted and pouted. Generally speaking, she enjoyed a dramatic tantrum, storming off to the forest for air and sneering at any friends who'd failed to defend her when it counted and merely fainted at following her. But she dutifully waited until nightfall to take her more permanent leave. She set sail in a small makeshift float, crafted of reeds and lily pads, easy to steer, difficult to trace or track with magic. She came upon a tall rock formation. She squinted, not quite believing her eyes. The outline of a human skull? Then, just as unexpectedly, the prow of a ship loomed through the low haze. A tattered flag revealed a leering skull and crossbones waving from the foremast as a shiver tiptoed across the back of Tink's neck. A figure emerged on the foredeck, the captain, clearly, in a long red dress coat with glittery gold trim. A tall hat with a large feather topped a cascade of fat black curls, and a handlebar mustache snaked over a sly smile that pierced Tink's bubble of nonchalance even across the distance and gloom. This man, this pirate captain, radiated cunning danger. Tink had been bobbing along on her lily pad for some time, feeling isolated, lonely, and rather misunderstood. The power and fury of her initial clash with the elders had faded. Perhaps she didn't belong among the fairy folk, after all. Perhaps it was fate that had carried her to this strange, foreboding place, to this sly man with his smug, nasty, yet entirely gleeful expression. Even if it were not fate as such, regardless, this was where the current had carried her. She had no plans to go back home any time soon. Curious, she felt a twitch at the spot where her wings met between her shoulder blades. Before she knew it, she was aloft, flying toward the ship, toward the dark, menacing, and yes, delightfully eager man who seemed equally delighted to lay eyes on her. "Hello?" she said as she rose to his eye level. Her tone was more of a question than a statement or greeting. "Well, hello there yourself," he replied. Tinkerbell started. She never met a mortal who could communicate with a fairy before. Who was this creature? He gave a short bow. "A pleasure to make the acquaintance of so charming a fairy as yourself." She tinkled, bashful laughter and uncertainty. "How do you do?" Would another fairy have taken note of the steel-gray tinge of storm clouds rolling in behind the pirate ship, the slight stench of rot on the surrounding winds? Likely. But Tink was at a most impressionable moment. He extended an arm as though to shake, despite the great disparity in their respective sizes, which Tinkerbell immediately decided was a point in his favor. But as she darted forward, Tink gasped. For where the captain should have had a hand, instead Tinkerbell found herself faced directly with a gleaming piece of metal polished to a deadly shine. The instrument, no, the weapon, was larger than the entirety of her body. She fluttered her wings hummingbird quick and regarded him again. She was all the more intrigued. The captain chuckled. "What can I say?" he asked. "Some of us are imbued with unique qualities. Mine is my hook, as plainly as yours is a formidable grasp of some very powerful magic, yes, and the inclination to put it to use. Tink flushed as she nodded, pleased that he had somehow divined this of her. What an oddly compelling man! It had been some time since she'd been addressed with such kindness. He leaned forward conspiratorially. I should wonder, he began, does your pixie dust know any limits? She shrugged coyly. If it did, she had yet to encounter them. After all, her lack of limits was the reason she was out there in the first place. Quite literally adrift. Not that I found. He cocked a knowing eyebrow at her. Aye, I see. Is this why you had to leave? I don't have to do anything, she insisted. Still she glanced away, a gesture of which Hook took notice. Your so-called family, so quick to cast you out. Aye, but it's a story I know perfectly well, lass. Family. All she wanted was to bask in the sunflower fields with her friends. Was that so wrong? Not at all, the captain said, reading her thoughts as though she'd spoken them. Or perhaps she had. She wasn't quite sure what was happening there, in that strange, unknowable place. And I'll tell you what's more, I'd love to have you for a partner. A pirate captain? Needing her? He waved his hook, this time as a demonstration, as she flapped her wings, giving a nervous squeak, and floating back from him sharply. 'Twas a scoundrel who cost me my hand, he said, lip curling into an angry snarl. She watched his mustache undulate with his words. It's been me life's mission to exact revenge, but I do wonder if a bit of pixie dust isn't what the mission needs to carry us to victory. Tinkerbell's heart raced as restlessly as her wings. A mission? That sounded important. She never had something so bold or explicit as a mission before. The closest she'd come was her chores, those infernal pots and pans again, decidedly less exciting. All the responsibility of a mission, but without, she imagined, the element of adventure. A mission involving my pixie dust. Indeed, the captain agreed. We need it to capture the boy. A boy? Tinkerbell had seen human boys before, but they so rarely believed in fairies that most often they were disinclined to notice one darting directly before their eyes. Yes, a boy. Though, if I'm honest, this one is more like a demon, the captain went on, rotten to the core. Don't you wonder why you've never come across this island before in all your exploring? Tinkerbell allowed that she did, in fact, wonder that. It's because the fairies, they're terrified of him. They didn't want you or any of the young'uns to know about the island. He's dangerous, I tell you. Well, this was growing more interesting by the moment. A secret mission, and a place so dangerous that the pixies avoided it, concealing it from their young. Do you think, Miss Bell, Tinkerbell? A grin split, the pirate's face in two, revealing jagged teeth. Do you think, Miss Bell, that you might be able to use your pixie dust to help me? Tinkerbell sighed with the great contentment. I'm quite sure of it. She perched on his hook, the metal cold against her feet, even through her slippers. It felt like the equivalent of shaking hands. There was a sense that passed between them that a mutual accord had been reached. Excellent. I think the two of us can help each other. Quite a great deal, in fact. His mustache trembled. Tell me this. Are you particularly fearful of crocodiles? Tinkerbell shrugged. She wasn't particularly afraid of anything, and she never met an especially aggressive crocodile in the hollow. It didn't seem he wanted an answer, though. Welcome to Neverland, Tinkerbell, the captain went on. You could call me Captain Hook. I'm so thrilled to make your acquaintance. He cocked an eyebrow at her. I just know you're going to help me defeat Peter Pan at last.